Okay, so a little bit of necessary backstory. I recently moved to the city from a small town. I know it's pretty much the most cliche thing I could have done. I suppose I just thought the change in scenery would somehow help me grow as a person. That getting away from everyone who knows who I am would somehow help me find who I really am. It seemed like the right choice at the time. I mean, it's gotta be a cliche for a reason, right? Now I realise that it's just left me up the creek without a paddle, or even a leg to stand on. But I suppose there's not much I can do about it at this point. I'm not going to tell you which city I'm talking about, just a heads up. I don't believe it's particularly important for the story. Plus, I'm not particularly keen on the idea of sharing my location with strangers on the internet. I've made enough mistakes lately, and I don't plan on adding any more. Enough about that though. So, as you might expect with moving somewhere new, there are plenty of problems that cropped up throughout the entire process. I was more or less able to plan for most of them. I had visited the city a few times throughout the move in order to meet with my landlord and take care of other busy work. While I was too busy to do much exploring or socializing, I had more or less familiarized myself with the area of the city I would be living in, at least. With that, and the assistance of the internet of course, I found myself well equipped to handle the move smoothly enough. There was one issue that I managed to overlook though, and that was the noise. You see, while I had visited the city a few times, I had never actually stayed overnight until my first evening in the new apartment. As such, I had no sense for how loud a city could be in the middle of the night. On top of that, the area that I moved into in particular had a rather active nightlife and was home to several very popular nightclubs. It was often the case that the streets were still bustling past midnight and even into the early morning. This would have been an issue for anyone, of course, but it was even more so for me, since I was an incredibly light sleeper. I maybe could have just moved to a different area. Looking back on it now, I somewhat regret the fact that I didn't. However, money was tight enough already following the initial move, and I wasn't eager to add on to that burden. I could have made do, but I was too stubborn to give in that easily. As such, I set about finding a way to deal with the noise. I tried a few different things, but eventually settled on a pair of decent noise-cancelling headphones and some background noise/music to help drown out the din from outside. It worked relatively well, though I did need a bit of time to get used to it. I had trouble sleeping occasionally in the dead silence of my hometown, so trying to sleep in a literal sea of sound was a bit difficult to adjust to. At first, I cycled through a couple different options of what to play in the headphones, searching whatever audio would work the best for me. Regular music didn't work too well for me. The song changes every few minutes were a bit jarring, and the vocals were too distracting. I tried out some background noise like rain or wind, but it didn't quite do a good enough job of drowning out the outside noise. White noise did a pretty good job of drowning out the outside noise, but something about it made me incredibly tense, and I couldn't relax while listening to it. Eventually, I ended up settling on those lo-fi hip-hop livestreams/playlists you can find on YouTube. I found the music incredibly relaxing, and since the streams ran 24/7, I never had to worry about it turning off on me. It wasn't perfect, and I still had the occasional difficulties falling asleep, but it was manageable. Everything changed though, when I found this one peculiar stream. I switched around the streams I listened to occasionally, trying to keep things fresh. I found that a lot of them end up looping the same music after a while, so I'd eventually get tired of them if I used the same stream for too long. It's become a bit of a trend lately, so I didn't exactly have a shortage of streams and playlists to choose from. The quality wasn't exactly consistent through the board, so it was a rather hit and miss process, but I'd come across a few diamonds in the rough every now and then, some of which would often have surprisingly low view counts. This particular stream seemed to be one of those. At any point in time, there were only 3 to 5 people watching, and none of them ever seemed to talk in chat. The channel only had about 10 subscribers or so, and only a couple hundred views. Barely anyone seemed to have seen the stream before, and it was only after an hour or so of idle digging that I happened to stumble across it. The quality of the music itself, though, was absolutely remarkable. The songs were all interesting, unique, and by artists I've never heard of before. Once I found it, I knew I had to give trying to fall asleep to it a try, and that very night, I did just that. And I fell asleep immediately. That barely ever happens for me. I woke up that morning feeling the most rested I've ever been in my entire life. I was astonished. Was it just a fluke? Or was the stream the cause? Needless to say, I tried it again the next night, and once again, I slept great. I started listening to nothing but that stream, and night after night, I kept having some of the best sleeps of my life. Work was going great. I was finally beginning to settle in and feel comfortable in my new home in the city. Everything seemed to finally be going just how I wanted it to. If it wasn't for my stupid cat, I may have just gone on like that forever, never realizing what was going on. I woke up that night to the sound of breaking glass and the pitter-patter of little feet on my hardwood floor. It took me a moment to realize what had happened, disoriented as I emerged from a very deep sleep. Slowly, my tired mind began to process what had happened. I remembered the glass I had foolishly forgotten on my counter and realized that my cat had likely knocked it over. Sighing, I sat up in my bed, surprised that the sound had even woken me up. It was then that I noticed that the headphones had slipped from over my ears. Before I found the livestream, this was an issue I regularly had to deal with. They would slip off as I slept, and it wouldn't be long afterwards that I would wake up, even if just enough to groan and slide them back into place. I hadn't had that happen in the weeks since I started listening to the livestream, at least not that I'd noticed. I'm not sure why this night was different. I suppose I just got lucky, if you can call it that. I was moving to take the headphones the rest of the way off of my head when I noticed something odd. There was no music coming out of them. I pulled them back over my ears to check. Nope, no music. I thought at first I might have pulled the cord loose from my laptop in my sleep, or something like that. But then I did hear something. Not music, but a strange female voice whispering in a language I didn't understand. I had no idea what she was saying, but something about her tone made me feel uncomfortable. It was the sort of tone one might have if they were describing the anatomy of an insect. Cold, mechanical, and maybe even a bit of disgust. Uneasy, I turned to face my laptop, which lay open on my bedside table, the screen facing me. It was still open to the live stream, but the stream itself was different. It had the same title and the same number of viewers, 5 including me. However, the calming looped video of waves crashing soundlessly against the cliff was gone. Instead, the video was now completely black. It wasn't a still image though, or at least it didn't feel like one. It was a shifting sort of darkness that almost seemed to quiver, if that makes any sense. Looking at it was like looking into the inky depths of the ocean at night, certain something is lurking beneath the waves, but not being able to see it. I couldn't stand to look at it too long, quickly averting my eyes. It was then that I saw the chat. Where it had once sat completely empty and unused, Now, it was moving quickly. Multiple messages being sent every second. It seemed that each of the 4 other people watching were rapidly chatting with each other at a breakneck pace. The messages were in a language I couldn't read, but if I had to guess, I'd say they were maybe in Russian. When I leaned in closer to see if I could decipher anything, the messages changed. They started all repeating the same message to each other over and over again. As this started, the viewer count began to drop one by one until there were only 2 people watching, me and someone else. It was when I realized that my webcam was on, however, that the stream went completely offline. Now, I'm not sure what to make of any of this, but I'm scared. If I had to guess, I'd say that this has been happening every night since I started watching. I don't know if it was meant for me. I'm pretty sure either way that I've stumbled upon something I was never meant to see. I may not know what it is that I've found, but I can't shake the feeling that this isn't the end of it. The stream hasn't come back online since, and the account that was running the stream has been deleted. Try as I might, I can't seem to find any sort of information on what the stream might have been, or on anyone else experiencing anything familiar. I've taped over my webcam now. I feel a bit silly for not having done it sooner, honestly. It's not like I ever used the thing. However, in spite of that, I can't seem to shake the feeling of being watched. I'm sure this paranoia of mine would have worn off eventually, and the whole experience of mine would just fade into memory as like other weird things I've seen on the internet. However, there is one simple fact that keeps me from simply letting go. I can't stop myself from sleeping anymore, no matter what I try. No matter where I am or who I'm with, once night falls, I'll soon be waking up in my bed the next morning with no memory of how I'd gotten there. It's not just a simple matter of wandering home and passing out though. I think I've been sleepwalking too. I've woken up to stuff in my apartment having been moved into strange places, like having all the furniture pushed into a corner, for example. I'm certain that I've left the apartment in this state as well, though I have no idea where I've been going. I've got no idea what to do about any of this, honestly, and I have nowhere to turn. Everyone who knows and cares about me is hundreds of miles away. I'm alone here, so I've turned once more to the internet for help. Please, has anyone ever experienced anything like this? Does anyone know anything about what's happening to me? Does anyone know what's going to happen to me?